After the age of 70, movement becomes more than a physical ability. It becomes a window into how the body is aging as a whole. The simple acts of standing up from a chair, walking across a room, or maintaining balance while turning are not isolated muscular tasks. They are complex conversations between the brain, the nervous system, the muscles, the joints, and the cardiovascular system. When these movements remain smooth and coordinated, they signal that these systems are still communicating effectively, adapting to age together rather than breaking down separately. Balance, in particular, reflects deep neurological integrity. It depends on sensory input from the eyes, inner ear, and joints, processed rapidly by the brain and translated into precise muscular adjustments. When balance is preserved, it suggests that neural pathways remain responsive and well integrated. This matters because the same pathways involved in balance also regulate blood pressure, heart rate, and reflexes that protect against injury. A steady gait is not just a sign of strength, it is evidence of a nervous system that still knows how to protect the body. Muscle strength plays an equally revealing role. With aging, muscle naturally declines, but the rate of that decline varies widely. When strength is maintained, it indicates adequate protein metabolism, hormonal balance, and physical activity levels that support tissue repair. Muscles are not merely for movement, they are metabolic organs that influence blood sugar control, inflammation, and immune function. Stronger muscles help stabilize joints, reduce the risk of falls, and lower the physiological stress associated with injury, all of which contribute to longer survival. Walking speed has emerged in scientific research as one of the most reliable predictors of longevity in older adults. A faster, stable walking pace reflects cardiovascular efficiency, lung capacity, muscle coordination, and neurological control working together. When walking slows significantly, it often signals that one or more systems are struggling, even before a formal diagnosis is made. The body expresses its internal state through movement long before it uses words like disease. What makes functional movement such a powerful predictor is that it cannot be faked or isolated. Unlike a single lab value or scan, movement reveals the combined performance of the entire organism. It shows how well the body adapts to gravity, fatigue, and changing environments. When adaptation remains strong, resilience follows. When it weakens, vulnerability grows. Movement also influences the future it predicts. Regular use of the body reinforces neural pathways, strengthens muscles, improves circulation, and preserves joint flexibility. Each step taken with intention sends signals that the body is still needed, still engaged, still worth maintaining. In this way, functional movement is both a mirror and a message. It reflects the current state of aging while actively shaping what comes next, quietly adjusting the trajectory of longevity through daily, ordinary actions that carry extraordinary biological meaning. Cognitive flexibility after the age of 70 is far more than the ability to remember names or solve puzzles. It represents the brain's capacity to adapt, reorganize, and regulate the body in response to constant internal and external change. The aging brain remains the command center for nearly every physiological process, from hormone release to immune response. When mental engagement remains strong, it signals that neural networks are still communicating efficiently, supporting balance not only in thought but throughout the entire body. The brain's influence on longevity extends beyond conscious thinking. Neural circuits regulate stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, which affect blood pressure, inflammation, and immune strength. When cognitive flexibility is preserved, these regulatory systems tend to remain more stable. The brain responds to stress with proportion rather than excess, preventing prolonged hormonal surges that slowly damage blood vessels and weaken tissue repair. In this way, a flexible mind protects the heart, the immune system, and even the digestive tract. Memory and attention are often the most visible aspects of cognition, but adaptability may be even more important. The ability to shift focus, learn new routines, and recover from mental fatigue reflects neuroplasticity. Plasticity allows the brain to reroute signals around minor damage and compensate for age-related changes. This adaptability mirrors how the body repairs physical injuries, reinforcing the idea that mental and physical resilience are deeply interconnected. Mental engagement also shapes behavior in ways that influence survival. Individuals who remain curious and mentally active are more likely to maintain routines, adhere to medical guidance, and notice subtle changes in their health. Awareness allows early intervention, which often prevents minor issues from becoming major threats. The body, when actively engaged, becomes an ally in self-preservation rather than a passive observer of decline. Social cognition further reinforces this process. Conversation, emotional interpretation, and shared experiences stimulate multiple brain regions simultaneously, strengthening neural connections. These interactions reduce loneliness-driven stress responses that elevate inflammation and suppress immune function. The mind, when connected, signals safety to the body, allowing energy to be invested in repair rather than defense. Sleep quality also reflects cognitive health. A brain that regulates sleep effectively supports memory consolidation, hormonal balance, and immune repair. Poor sleep disrupts these processes, accelerating cognitive and physical decline. When cognitive flexibility remains intact, sleep-wake cycles tend to be more stable, reinforcing restorative processes that support longevity. Ultimately, the brain does not age in isolation. It shapes and is shaped by every system it governs. Cognitive flexibility acts as a stabilizing force, smoothing the body's response to stress, illness, and uncertainty. When the mind remains adaptable, the body gains time, not because it avoids challenges, but because it responds to them with balance rather than collapse, sustaining internal harmony across years that continue to unfold with quiet resilience.
Social connection in later life is often described in emotional terms, but its influence reaches far deeper, shaping biology in ways that directly affect how long and how well a person lives. The human body evolved in social environments, and even in old age, it continues to interpret connection as a signal of safety. When relationships remain present through conversation, shared routines, or even simple daily interactions, the nervous system operates differently. Stress responses soften, heart rate variability improves, and inflammatory processes become more regulated, creating internal conditions that support longevity. Loneliness, by contrast, is not merely a feeling, it is a physiological state. When social bonds weaken, the brain perceives threat, activating survival pathways designed for short-term danger. Stress hormones rise, blood vessels tighten, and immune responses become dysregulated. Over time, this low-grade but persistent activation quietly damages cardiovascular tissue, weakens immune defenses, and accelerates cellular aging. Research consistently shows that chronic social isolation carries health risks comparable to well-known physical factors, precisely because it reshapes internal chemistry rather than remaining confined to emotion. Social interaction also stimulates the brain in complex ways. Conversation engages memory, language, emotional processing, and attention simultaneously, strengthening neural networks that might otherwise weaken with age. These neural benefits extend beyond cognition. A stimulated brain maintains better control over hormonal rhythms and autonomic functions, influencing digestion, sleep, and heart function. The body responds to mental engagement generated through connection by maintaining balance across systems that depend on central regulation. There is also a behavioral dimension to social connection that supports survival. People who are socially engaged are more likely to notice changes in one another, respond to illness sooner, and maintain healthier routines. Shared meals, regular check-ins, and collective activities create structure that reinforces nutrition, movement, and medical adherence. These patterns reduce the likelihood that minor health issues will progress unnoticed into serious conditions. Emotional support further buffers the physiological effects of stress. When individuals feel understood and valued, the brain releases neurochemicals associated with calm and bonding, which counteract the harmful effects of prolonged stress exposure. This internal environment favors repair, supporting immune surveillance and tissue regeneration. The heart, in particular, benefits from this balance, as emotional distress is closely linked to irregular rhythms and vascular strain. Importantly, social connection does not require constant activity or large networks. Even a small number of meaningful relationships can provide sufficient biological reassurance. What matters is consistency and authenticity, not quantity. The body responds to the reliability of connection, interpreting it as stability in the environment. As people age, roles may shift and social circles may shrink, but the biological need for connection does not diminish. When social engagement is preserved, the body remains oriented toward maintenance rather than defense. In this way, connection becomes a form of quiet medicine, continuously shaping internal processes that protect the heart, support immunity, and slow the invisible mechanisms of decline, allowing life to extend not only in years, but in resilience that continues to sustain the body forward in time. Metabolic stability in older age reflects a deep and often overlooked harmony among the body's internal systems. After 70, the body's ability to maintain a relatively stable weight, consistent energy levels, and reliable appetite is not a matter of willpower alone. It signals that the digestive system, liver, muscles, pancreas, and hormonal networks are still cooperating effectively. When this coordination is intact, nutrients are absorbed efficiently, blood sugar is regulated with less strain, and energy is distributed where it is needed rather than lost to imbalance. One of the clearest signs of metabolic stability is how the body responds to disruption. Illness, minor injury, or even a short period of fatigue acts as a stress test. A resilient metabolism adapts and then returns to baseline without prolonged decline. This recovery reflects the body's ability to mobilize energy, repair tissue, and regulate inflammation without exhausting its reserves. When recovery is slow or incomplete, it often suggests that systems are struggling to communicate, leaving the body vulnerable to cascading problems that shorten lifespan. Muscle tissue plays a central role in this process. Muscles are not passive structures. They actively regulate glucose, support immune signaling, and influence hormone balance. Maintaining muscle mass supports metabolic efficiency and reduces the burden on organs like the pancreas and liver. When muscle declines sharply, blood sugar regulation becomes more erratic, inflammation increases, and recovery from stress becomes more difficult. This is why metabolic health and physical function are so closely linked in aging populations. The digestive system also offers important clues. Regular appetite, tolerance for a varied diet, and stable digestion indicate that the gut lining, microbiome, and nutrient transport mechanisms remain functional. These systems influence immune health and inflammation, which in turn affect cardiovascular risk and cellular aging. When digestion becomes chronically disrupted, it often reflects broader metabolic strain rather than an isolated issue. Hormonal balance quietly ties these processes together. Hormones regulate hunger, energy use, sleep, and repair. In older adults, stable hormonal signaling supports consistent daily rhythms that allow the body to anticipate needs rather than react to crises. Disrupted hormonal patterns, by contrast, create metabolic unpredictability, increasing stress on organs and accelerating wear.
What makes metabolic stability such a powerful predictor of longevity is its integrative nature. It cannot be attributed to a single habit or measurement. It reflects the cumulative effect of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress regulation, and internal communication. When these factors align, the body conserves energy, responds efficiently to challenges, and avoids unnecessary inflammation. Recovery speed is the visible expression of this internal balance. A body that rebounds after stress demonstrates biological reserve, the capacity to absorb strain without lasting damage. This reserve becomes increasingly important with age, as challenges are inevitable. Metabolic stability does not prevent illness, but it determines how deeply illness imprints itself on the body. In this way, the ability to recover becomes a quiet predictor of how long the body can continue to adapt, repair, and sustain life as time moves forward.
Emotional regulation in later life is often mistaken for temperament or attitude, but biologically it reflects the tone of the nervous system and its ability to return to balance after stress. After the age of 70, the body encounters challenges more frequently, whether through illness, loss, uncertainty, or physical limitation. What predicts longevity is not the absence of these stressors, but how efficiently the body recovers once they pass. Emotional regulation becomes a visible signal of this recovery capacity, revealing how deeply stress imprints itself on the heart, immune system, and brain. When stress arises, the body releases hormones designed to mobilize energy and sharpen focus. In the short term, this response is protective. The problem emerges when these signals linger. Chronic emotional distress keeps stress hormones elevated, increasing inflammation, tightening blood vessels, and disrupting sleep and digestion. Over time, this sustained activation erodes biological resilience. Individuals who can process emotion without remaining trapped in it tend to shut down the stress response more quickly, allowing the body to shift from defense back into repair. This ability to regulate emotion is closely tied to autonomic balance. A well-regulated nervous system alternates smoothly between activation and rest. Heart rate variability, a marker of this balance, is strongly associated with longevity. Higher variability reflects adaptability, the capacity to respond to stress without becoming rigid. Emotional steadiness supports this flexibility, enabling the heart to adjust efficiently to changing demands rather than remaining locked in a strained state. Recovery speed offers a practical window into this process. After an illness, a poor night's sleep, or an emotionally difficult event, some individuals rebound quickly, while others experience prolonged fatigue or decline. This difference reflects biological reserve, the body's remaining capacity to absorb disruption without cascading failure. Emotional regulation conserves this reserve by limiting unnecessary stress activation. When emotional responses are proportionate, the body preserves energy for healing rather than expending it on prolonged alarm. There is also a cognitive dimension to emotional resilience. Perspective, acceptance, and meaning influence how the brain interprets events. When challenges are framed as manageable rather than overwhelming, neural circuits associated with threat are less activated. This reduces the hormonal burden placed on the body. Over time, these patterns shape physiological aging, subtly influencing inflammation, immune surveillance, and vascular health. Importantly, emotional regulation does not imply emotional suppression. Suppressed emotion often intensifies internal stress. Regulation involves acknowledgement and processing, allowing emotion to move through the system rather than stagnate within it. This fluidity mirrors healthy physiology, where circulation and exchange prevent damage. The body thrives on movement, whether of blood, oxygen, or emotional energy. As people age, emotional experience often deepens rather than diminishes. Loss and uncertainty become more frequent, making regulation both more challenging and more essential. Those who cultivate emotional flexibility tend to maintain stronger social bonds, better sleep patterns, and more consistent self-care behaviors, all of which reinforce biological stability. In the end, emotional regulation reveals how well the body can close the stress loop. It signals whether challenges leave lasting scars or temporary impressions. A body that recovers emotionally tends to recover physically, preserving internal balance and extending the capacity to adapt across the years that continue to unfold through change, resilience, and quiet persistence.
Most people believe longevity is written in their genes, fixed like a number etched into stone. But science tells a quieter, more hopeful story. After the age of 70, how long we live is less about fate and more about signals, small, observable signs the body gives as it negotiates time. Aging is not a sudden decline. It is a conversation between biology and behavior, between resilience and repair. The body does not count years the way calendars do. It measures function, adaptability, and balance. One of the strongest predictors of longevity is movement, not athletic performance, but the simple ability to rise from a chair, walk steadily, and maintain balance. These actions reflect the integrity of muscles, nerves, and the brain working together. When movement remains coordinated, it suggests that multiple systems are aging in harmony rather than isolation. Strength and balance are not cosmetic markers of youth. They are biological evidence that the body still communicates efficiently within itself. Another signal lies in the rhythm of the mind. Cognitive engagement, curiosity, memory, attention, and emotional regulation reveals the health of neural networks that influence far more than thought alone. The brain governs hormones, immunity, and inflammation. When cognition remains flexible, the body benefits from more stable internal regulation. Longevity is supported not by avoiding mistakes, but by the brain's ability to adapt and recover from them. Social connection also leaves measurable fingerprints on survival. Humans are biologically wired for interaction, and isolation triggers stress responses that quietly damage blood vessels, weaken immunity, and accelerate inflammation. Conversation, shared routines, and emotional presence are not sentimental comforts, they are physiological stabilizers. A connected life keeps stress hormones in check, allowing the body to spend energy on repair rather than defense. There is also a revealing honesty in appetite and energy. Stable weight, consistent nourishment, and the ability to recover from illness suggest metabolic balance. The body's capacity to absorb nutrients and regulate energy reflects the health of the digestive system, liver, muscles, and hormones working in synchrony. Longevity often favors those whose systems cooperate efficiently rather than those who simply consume more interventions. Emotional outlook plays a role that science once underestimated. A calm, purposeful perspective influences nervous system tone, heart rhythm, and immune response. Chronic pessimism and unresolved stress subtly erode physiological resilience, while emotional steadiness supports repair processes at the cellular level. This is not about forced positivity, but about psychological flexibility, the ability to process stress without becoming trapped in it. Finally, how the body responds to minor stress reveals how it will face major ones. Recovery time after illness, injury, or fatigue is a powerful predictor of lifespan. Quick recovery signals biological reserve, the capacity to return to equilibrium. Aging well is less about avoiding stress and more about restoring balance after it. After 70, the body tells its story not in dramatic events, but in patterns. Longevity is written in how we move, think, connect, recover, and regulate. These signs are not promises, but probabilities shaped by daily biology, quietly adjusting the future with every breath, step, and moment of awareness.